Hello everyone. Welcome to the tutorial of Hello World in HP IDOL On Demand in Salesforce. In this tutorial, I will be discussing about the HP IDOL On Demand API and my main focus will be on three APIs. First, Find Similar API. The Find Similar API returns documents in the IDOL On Demand databases that are similar to text or a document that you provide. Second, OCR Document API. The OCR Document API extracts text from an image that you provide. And finally, we will see Sentiment Analysis API. The Sentiment Analysis API analyzes text to return the sentiment as positive, negative or neutral. I have shown the implementation of these three API in Apex and Visualforce. At the end of this video, you will be able to understand and implement these three goals. Number 1, execute a Find Similar IDOL On Demand API call from Wikipedia on the phrase Hello World and display the text from the Wikipedia article. Second, execute an OCR Document API call for an image file, and display the extracted text from the image. And lastly, to execute a Sentiment Analysis API call with the text from the Hello World response, which we have computed above, and will display the sentiment score, along with the sentiment rating, positive, negative, or neutral. Apart from this, I have shown how to run your program in Salesforce. So, let's get started. Before we move further and discuss more on programming side of IDOL API, I believe it's a good idea to take a small tour of HP IDOL On Demand. For those who have already signed up for an IDOL account, may skip this and can directly jump to programming in IDOL API. Whenever you first visit the IDOL web page, you are required to sign up. Sign up button is located at top right. It will ask you to fill few details. Okay, once sign up is done, next, you will log in by clicking on Login button. Since I already signed up, I will directly jump to login. There are various login options for you, like Google, Yahoo, Facebook, Twitter, etc. I have my Google account linked with IDOL, so I will click on Google and will proceed to next. Once you log into your account, you should click on Get an API key. You need this API key for your account. It's a token which is required while calling any API. You can manage your account by clicking on Account tab at top right. You can see various options you can manage your API key, check your usage for any particular API key, and many more. Lastly, now, we will have a quick look at API page, before moving on to programming for IDOL API. Okay, so, from this API page, we can see all the APIs available in IDOL. There are a lot of useful APIs. Let's examine one of these API. Let's go to OCR Document API. This is an overview page of OCR API, which is giving us all the necessary information about this API. Now, let's move to Request tab. This page is giving us the information, which we need to send during our post-REST call, while calling this API. Remember, this is the URL which we need to pass to call this API. You can choose either of the asynchronous or synchronous, depending on your application. Now, let's move to Response tab. As you can see, the response, which we get from this API, will be our nice formatted friend JSON. You can see the exact structure by scrolling down. So, this winds up our small tour of IDOL On Demand API. Now, we will look into the programming aspect of IDOL API. So, let's go ahead, let's set up development environment in Salesforce. If you are not already a member of the Force.com developer community, go to and follow the instructions for signing up for a developer edition organization. If you already have a developer edition organization, verify that you have the API enabled permission. This permission is enabled by default, but may have been changed by an administrator. To edit your profile, you will need to go to Setup, after that Manage Users, and after that Profiles in the Salesforce user interface to grant the API enabled permission. Next, since we are going to develop everything in Salesforce and will use Visualforce to display output, it is a good option to set up development mode for Visualforce. Although, you can view and edit Visualforce page definitions from Setup, in Develop, and then go to Pages. Enabling Visualforce development mode is the best way to build Visualforce pages. To enable Visualforce development mode, use these steps. At the top of any Salesforce page, click the down arrow next to your name. From the menu under your name, select My Settings. After this, select Personal. Once you have expanded Personal, now select Advanced User Details. Click Edit. Select the Development Mode checkbox. Optionally, select the Show View State in Development Mode checkbox to enable the View State tab on the development footer. This tab is useful for monitoring the performance of your Visualforce pages. After everything is done, which is described above, click Save. With development mode enabled, you can view and edit the content of a page by navigating to the URL of the page. For example, if a page is named Catalog, and your Salesforce.com instance is ap1.salesforce.com, enter https://ap1salesforce.com/apex/catalog in your browser's address bar. If this page does not exist, you are directed to an intermediary page from which you can create your new page. Click Create Page to create it automatically. After enabling development mode, all Visualforce pages display, with the development mode footer at the bottom of the browser. After this, click on Setup. Once you click on Setup, click on Security Controls. Now, click on Remote Site Setting. Click on New Remote Site, and add api.idolondemand.com. This will enable our API to be called from Apex. Now, with this, our Salesforce setup is also done. We will now see our class in Apex. Before we do any other thing, the foremost important thing and the thing which I find most difficult is deployment. Before deployment, let's see you have prerequisitive in your system. To see if you have Java installed, first, open a command prompt. Second, at the prompt, type Java version and press Enter. The Force.com migration tool works with Java version 1.6x or later. If you have an earlier version, you'll need to install Java 1.6x or later. Next, we need to see whether Ant is installed. To see if you have Ant installed, open a command prompt. Second, at the prompt, type Ant version and press Enter. If any of the above is not installed, I request you to install it before going further. Next, go to My Submission folder and unzip that folder. Inside that folder, go to Salesforce_ant_30.0 directory. Copy Ant Salesforce jar and paste into your Ant installation's lib directory. The lib directory is located in the root folder of your Ant installation. I have Ant in my default location in Ubuntu. The default location is /user/share/ant/lib, so I copied this Ant to this location. You need to be a root user or copy it through terminal using sudo. Once you copied this, go back to Salesforce_ant_30.0 directory. Inside this directory, further go to sample directory. Open build properties file. Inside that directory, fill sf.username with username of your Salesforce account. Next, fill sf.password with your Salesforce password and append it with your security token. To get your security token, go to your Salesforce account. After this, go to Settings, and after that, go to Reset My Security Token. OK, once you have followed this, go to Terminal to sample directory. Now, run Ant deploy unpackaged. That is it. We are done with deployment process. Now, let's move ahead. Now, let's look at Apex class creation in Salesforce. In this step, you will add an Apex class that contains methods for Find Similar, OCR and Sentiment Analysis API. From Setup, first click Develop, and now click Apex Classes and now click New. In the class editor, enter the class definition of IDOL OnDemand class. Apex code is generally contained in classes. This class is defined as public, which means the class is available to other Apex classes and triggers. Add method definition between the class opening and closing brackets. Let's look at all methods one by one. I have shown the output screen in Visualforce, and its explanation is discussed later, when we will discuss about Visualforce page. First, we will see only API implementation. Let's first look at Find Similar method. This method calls Find Similar IDOL API. This line is building URL from the partial URL by concatenating Find Similar and version number string with API URL class variable. Here, we are creating an instance of HTTP request class. Now, we are creating an instance of HTTP response class. After this, we have created an instance of HTTP class. Now, we are calling setEndpoint method of class HTTP request. Next, we are setting method type to post. Next, we are setting body of message, with key value of additional parameters, we need to pass. First one is, API key, with its value as API key of your IDOL account. The second parameter is text, with its value as hello world. It is this text for which find similar will be done. It is important to note that the value of keys here are encoded. In next line, we are calling HTTP send method, with parameter as the HTTP request object, which we have built in the above lines. The returned value will be stored in HTTP response object. Finally, we are returning JSON string, by calling getBody method of HTTP response class. I hope you are very clear about this code. We will see its output when we discuss about Visualforce after a while. Now, let's move to next API method. Now, we will look for OCR document. I have provided 3 different methods to compute OCR document result, but for simplicity, I have explained here only one code. The other 2 methods are self-explanatory, with added comments. Here, I am explaining OCR document, through URL synchronous call. This method calls OCR document IDOL API. This is building URL from the partial URL, by concatenating OCR document and version number string, with API URL class variable. In next line, we are storing URL of image in image URL variable. It is this image for which we will generate the output. Here, we are creating an instance of HTTP request class. Now, we are creating an instance of HTTP response class. After this, we have created an instance of HTTP class. At this line, we are calling setEndpoint method, of class HTTP request. Next, we are setting method type to post. Next, we are setting body of message with key value of additional parameters, which we need to pass. First one is, API key, with its value as API key of your IDOL account. The second parameter is URL, with its value as URL of the image. It is this image for which OCR document will be done. It is important to note that the value of keys here are encoded. In next line, we are calling HTTP send method, with parameter as the HTTP request object, which we have built in the above lines. The returned value will be stored in HTTP response object. Finally, we are returning JSON string, by calling getBody method of HTTP response class. Finally, let's move to our last method. This method calls sentiment analysis API of IDOL OnDemand. We have done the sentiment analysis on the first document returned from the find similar method, discussed above. This very line calls the find similar method. The result is stored in temp similar variable. In next line, we are building URL from the partial URL by concatenating analyze sentiment and version number string, with API URL class variable. In next line, we are creating an instance of HTTP response class. After that, in next few lines, we have parsed this JSON string, to get URL of first document. We stored result in reference URL variable. After this, we have created an instance of HTTP class. At this line, we are calling setEndpoint method of class HTTP request. Next, we are setting method type to post. Next, we are setting body of message with key value of additional parameters, which we need to pass. First one is, API key, with its value as API key of your IDOL account. The second parameter is URL, with its value as URL of the document. It is this document for which sentiment analysis will be done. It is important to note that the value of keys here are encoded. In next line, we are calling HTTP send method, with parameter as the HTTP request object, which we have built in the above lines. The returned value will be stored in HTTP response object. Finally, we are returning JSON string, by calling getBody method of HTTP response class. Now, we have a class that contains methods that will call IDOL OnDemand API, and fetch all the necessary information. Now, to display the output, we need to call all these methods. For that, I have made Visualforce script. There are in total of 6 VF script. Let's examine one by one. Visualforce script for find similar. We have named this page as find similar. You can open this script, by typing in browser, your Salesforce instance followed by salesforce.com/apex/find similar. Let's wait meanwhile my script gets opened. OK, here we are accessing find similar content and displaying it through output text. This is the output of find similar API. Visual Force script for OCR document API through URL synchronously. We have named this page as OCR through URL sync. You can open this script by typing in browser, your Salesforce instance followed by salesforce.com/apex/OCR through URL sync. Let's wait meanwhile my script gets opened. OK, here we are accessing OCR through URL sync value, and displaying it through output text. This is the output of OCR document API. Visual Force script for sentiment analysis API. We have named this page as sentiment analysis. You can open this script by typing in browser, your Salesforce instance followed by salesforce.com/apex/sentiment analysis. Let's wait meanwhile my script gets opened. OK, here we are accessing sentiment content value, and displaying it through output text. This is the output of sentiment analysis API. Finally, we will see Visual Force script for main tab, which we have named as catalog. You can open this script by typing in browser, your Salesforce instance followed by salesforce.com/apex/catalog. Let's wait meanwhile my script gets opened. OK, in this, I have provided buttons for all the APIs which I have created. To see any API, you should click that button and one of the Visual Script page will get opened. We will examine this a bit later. First, let's see Visual Force script of this catalog page. Here, we have created buttons for separate methods. Also, we have written JavaScript to display or call appropriate method, which in further will open up Visual Force script. Let me show you one such method. Let's look at find similar. Here, we have created command button for find similar, and called do find similar method in JavaScript. Now, this do find similar method is calling our Visual Force script of find similar, which I showed you earlier. Similarly, for every button, similar algorithm is being followed. I hope you must have understood this Salesforce tutorial of IDOL on Demand, and feeling a lot excited. Now, I will show you the different output, before winding up this tutorial. I hope you must have enjoyed this tutorial on Salesforce for IDOL on Demand. This tutorial only provides some of the basic API of HP IDOL on Demand. You can explore more options about these APIs by visiting the home page of IDOL API. If you have any queries, the best way to resolve them is through community post in IDOL community board. Congratulations for completing this tutorial and thanks for watching.